Well, that was a bit of an awkward start. So, how's everybody?
I was going to say, you really let that last note ring out.
There's something, I don't know. We're doing a more artful film tonight, so there's something artistic about starting on a black screen versus going right to the two-shot.
I thought you were going to have us come in slow motion while your theme song plays.
That's a good idea.
I know.
That's a good idea. I thought about all the various different things. Welcome to J Hutch Talks Too Much, everybody, by the way. And we're talking about Rushmore. Look who's back. Joe Lasko's back. You may remember him from such episodes as Self-Directed Education, episode number 3, in case you want to go back into the archives and check out the classic J Hutch videos.
It was a good one. It was a good one.
It was a great one.
Yeah, it was.
Welcome back, Joe.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me, Jesse.
Yeah, today we're talking about Rushmore, Wes Anderson's 1998 movie Rushmore. And I was trying to think of how could I use StreamYard effectively to try to like get like yellow lettering or something on the screen. But that's a lot of effort, and I really didn't spend that much time thinking about it. But it would have been a great idea.
Can you choose the fonts for the names? And
I don't think we have any control over that.
That's okay. You don't need to look into it now. That's all right.
But I did try to perfectly center myself like a kind of way. Actually, I chose the image for this video because I thought it kind of looked a little bit like.
Yeah, like the colors behind you.
There's yellows back there. Things. Yeah, I think it works. So Joe, we were just talking a few minutes ago about sort of our shared love of this film, and I wanted to get you on because back when we worked in the same room together for a long period of time, I remember us talking about Wes Anderson quite a bit. But I wanted to know sort of first, before we start, sort of maybe what your how you came to this movie, if you could recall that, or what are some of your earliest memories of watching Rushmore?
Yeah, you mentioned, and I've been trying to think about when, like, my earliest memory of it. I remember seeing it when it came out, and the reason I saw it was because my brother had seen it, and my brother was always much cooler than I was, and he would sort of latch on to these movies, and he said, "Oh yeah, there's this movie Rushmore," and he told me what it was about, and so I saw it, and it was one of those movies that on the first watch I think I was so young, I didn't fully get it. Like I didn't fully get it, and it wasn't until after not getting the Royal Tenenbaums the first time I saw it, and then like people insisting to me that you got to watch it again. And watching Royal Tenenbaums, like I said, I think 2 nights in a row. The first night I didn't really get it. The second time I was dying. And then it occurred to me, hey, maybe I need to see Rushmore again as well. And so I went to the local Blockbuster and rented it. And
probably the same Blockbuster that I went to many a time.
It probably was.
Is it on Bloor Street?
No, not that one.
Okay.
No, it was the one I don't, near Humbertown. I don't know, near the Kingsway.
Okay, yeah.
And I loved it so much, and I ended up stealing the DVD. I kept it. I just kept it because I couldn't get enough of it. I watched it constantly. And
you may be the reason.
It turned me into a real motherfucker.
A Wes Anderson fan, in other words.
Well, yeah, it solidified me as a Wes Anderson fan. But I wanted, I loved the way that Max had no fear, and I wanted to be like that.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say you may be the reason why Blockbuster went out of business.
I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't the only movie I kept.
Oh my God.
No,
There's a whole record of
I don't
your.
want to. We'll talk about that off the air.
Okay, fine. That's fine. That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
I was gonna say I don't know what's happening with this podcast because we're actually talking about a movie that I saw in the theater. And that's I thought I was pushing it last movie when I was doing one that was made during my lifetime, which I did. Thief was made in 1981. I was 1
Right,
years old when that came out.
right.
So I thought that was going a little bit too far in terms
Did
of like
you fall asleep in the theater for that one, or did you make it through?
for Thief. No,
Yeah,
I was riveted. I was
right.
riveted when I saw Thief.
By the way, which theater did you see Rushmore at? Do you remember?
Rushmore, I would have been in Oakville, actually. It wouldn't have
Okay,
been in Toronto.
okay.
But yeah, so I saw it there. So that's the first movie we're talking about that I saw in the theater. I would have been about 18 years
Yeah,
old when
yeah,
that movie came out.
yeah.
I think no, I was gonna say I think I've seen every Wes Anderson movie in the theater since then. I missed the Darjeeling Limited. I didn't see that in the theater, but I think I've seen everything else. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, same.
Yeah. But yeah, it's quite. And I was going to say we were just talking about this before. I got the DVD here. So it is one of my favorite movies as well. And you were saying it's your favorite movie.
It is my favorite movie of all time, and I've said that for years and years and years, but I haven't watched it. I haven't, it's I've talked about rewatching it for years, and you talk about rewatching movies, and sometimes you get around to them, and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
Especially if you have kids, you really don't.
Yeah.
But finally, you asked me to do this, and I rewatched it last night, and I am happy to say that it is still my favorite movie of all time. It's a masterpiece. It's perfect in every way.
Well,
I don't think there's a single misstep in the movie as a whole.
Yeah. It's a very tightly made movie. First of all, it's quite short.
Yeah,
Although,
I think it's 88 minutes.
Yeah, very short. I was just saying to my friend Andrews, who I had on to talk about Thief, that I'm not one to say that a movie should be a certain length because I like really long movies and I like really short movies. But it is a very compact film, and a lot happens in that time period, in that 88 minutes of the film. A lot goes on, but and everything is kind of, to me, sort of very tied up quite nicely in that movie.
I totally agree, and it says something about Wes Anderson's confidence that he kept it at 88 minutes, right?
Yeah.
That runtime, because I don't know. I remember growing there's always been 90 minutes has always been like the minimum mark for a film, right? I don't know why I've got that in my head. It's just anything below 90 minutes. I don't know. It's
well, when we were kids, 90 minutes was standard.
That was runtime.
Yeah, that was almost every movie was somewhere between like 85 minutes and 100 minutes, usually somewhere in that realm. And
I don't ever remember any being below 90, and
right,
for him to maintain 88. I'm keeping 88. I'm not.
Right.
I know Joe Lasko will not call this a real movie unless this hits 90 minutes, and I'm keeping it at 88.
I'm doing it anyway.
It shows his confidence.
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
It's like when.
And then he thought, you know what? He's not even going to play. Then he said, he's not even going to pay for this movie, so I'm just going to keep it at 88.
In fairness, I paid for it once.
That's true.
Oh, I paid for it twice. I paid for it in the theater, and then I paid for the rental. So.
Right. That's true.
You can cut that out right now.
Okay, fair enough. All right. I apologize for that.
Yeah.
So now I did, before we get into the real specifics of the movie, because there's a lot to talk about with the movie, but I want to kind of begin because, Wes Anderson, I think today has a reputation with a lot of people. Like I was saying to you before, there's people whose views on film I really respect, whose just views in general I respect. Some of them love Wes Anderson, some of them hate Wes Anderson. And along those lines, actually, I want to share this review because Jacobin Jacobin, the magazine Jacobin?
Yeah.
They did a review. Actually, right exactly along these lines, they did 2 reviews of this movie.
Really?
Yeah, they did 2. One positive and one
That's not fair. You're
not
not allowed
not as
to do
positive.
that. You can't go both. You can't
They're
go both
hedging the
ways.
bets.
Yeah, that's
Hedging the
right.
bets. And but I like Jacobin normally. Actually, a mutual friend of ours writes for Jacobin occasionally.
Who's that?
But Aaron Giovanoni
Oh,
writes.
great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Love
but he didn't write either of these reviews.
it. Okay.
So I want to just share. Let's see if I can screw this one up because so far everything's. Hold on a sec. So okay. So I'm going to share this review. This is from the less positive review, but this is just from the very end of it, and it's a review of his latest film. But I know you haven't seen it. It's not going to give really anything significant away.
Okay.
But this is what it says, and I think that this kind of speaks to a lot of people's problem with Wes Anderson. So they say, it's not as if there's absolutely no reason to see the film, which gleams like any finicking, high quality, obsessively polished craftwork, and even has glimmers of real insight and humor and affection here and there. But as always, you have to fight your way through the suffocatingly arch Andersonian sensibility to get them. This is hard to read.
Yeah.
Get
I'm fighting my way through the suffocating.
Hold on a second. Arch Jonesian.
Okay. Exactly.
Arch Jonesian sensibility that's writing this. Guess what Anderson, the ardent Francophile, names the make-believe French city where the French Dispatch, a Kansas-based publication, is generated? Ennui sur Blaze. Do you find that charmingly fresh and funny? Then this is the film for you. Though I admit it's hardly worth recommending or not recommending Wes Anderson films anymore, he's such a distinctive and well-known quantity, for good or ill. People who bother to read film reviews have either already decided to see his latest effort, or else they know that they wouldn't be caught dead seeing it. And that's a matter to be worked out between you and le bon Dieu. Okay.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a review that's, again, it's not totally negative on Wes Anderson, but I do think it speaks to what a lot of people's issue is with him. But in my view, it kind of, I'm glad that he gets that kind of a response. I think that speaks to how good he is, because a word that came to my head when I was watching Rushmore and then came up in a lot of things that I was reading in preparation for this discussion was idiosyncratic. And I think all the best artists are idiosyncratic. Like in this most recent movie, The French Dispatch, he 2 times I kind of recognized other directors at work in the film, and one was Fellini and one was Jean-Luc Godard.
Yeah.
And both of those filmmakers have very idiosyncratic styles. You can sit down, not even know who it was, and if you've watched films by them before, it's theirs. And this review, sorry for rambling. I promise you, I will certainly let you talk about it. But that review reminds me a little bit of, forgive me for even saying the name of the film, but it reminds me a little bit of the movie Annie Hall, where in that movie they're in a lineup and this guy behind them is droning about, like, we saw the latest Fellini, it wasn't very good, he's so self-indulgent.
That's great scene.
Yeah. And that review kind of reminds me of that. And it seems to me that if you have, even in life, if you're not a filmmaker, you're not an artist, if you have anything closely resembling a personality, there's going to be some people who really like you, and there's going to inevitably be people who don't.
Yeah.
You can't, if you have a personality, you're not going to be able to please anybody. People who please everybody don't have personalities, it strikes me. And so I'm kind of glad in some ways that he and that's why I think people who I respect can dislike him, because people who I respect can dislike other people of whose personalities just don't jive with them, I suppose. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
No, I think I think that's a brilliant way of explaining it. I mean, this is why there are so few great auteurs, right? In film is that you have to be fucking awesome in order to get away with having a like such a distinct style that is recognizable across the board, because really, there's not a lot of room for failure anymore, right?
Right.
And if you fail as a filmmaker, especially, you need to make yourself almost invisible in the next one, right? To get
Right.
back on track. So I think it's, obviously it's a testament to Wes Anderson. Like he has inspired so many filmmakers, so many artists, like so few other filmmakers. Like, I mean, we can probably list on one hand the filmmakers that are making films today that that inspire others, like Wes Anderson. Like, I'll try Quentin Tarantino, Wes Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson, Christopher Nolan, and who am I missing? I know I'm missing someone, but really, I mean, maybe it's four. I don't know. It might just, right? Like, so
Yeah.
what does that say? I think an even more interesting discussion is what does that say for the appetite of the audience, that we don't allow many filmmakers to stylize their films like they used to, right? Like when film was in the golden age in the 60s and 70s, when it was highly stylized, and that was accepted and loved and adored and criticized, but not to the point of saying, well, you're going to make up your mind if you see it or not, because if you like one, if you've seen one, you've seen them all, and if you like one, you like them all, which is not actually true. I think that's very minimalistic, because there are, I think anybody who enjoys Wes Anderson movies can say, yeah, there's tears, right? Like, there are definite tears.
Yeah. See, I think I tend to think that, and maybe this is just my optimism, because I know a lot of people who I've said this to before, and they believe I'm too optimistic about it. But I think that if more people had generally access to these movies, knew that they even existed, because I bet you if you asked your average person, do you know there's a movie out right now called The French Dispatch? They would say no.
Agreed.
I would guess. And I think that if they had the
opportunity, sorry to interrupt you, but that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, that in itself, with the number of films this guy's put out, that is amazing.
It is amazing. It is amazing.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of people, if they went to go see it, it would probably at first be jarring, but I think that it kind of like your experience when you first saw Rushmore, maybe, or the Royal Tenenbaums, like, it would be jarring, but then after you see 2 or 3 movies that are like that have a kind of idiosyncratic style, arch Andersonian or arch Tarantino-esque or whatever, I think a lot of people would enjoy it. Now, Tarantino does get an audience, but and so does Christopher Nolan for the most part. But a lot of the other ones don't. Like, I don't think there's going to be much of an audience for the new P.T. Anderson movie that's coming out.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either.
So, they'll have some people, but I think most people. This is such a digression, so forgive me for this, but I remember. Because my daughter was really into the movie Frozen back in 2013.
No, really?
You're like any kid that age, yeah. And so, but I remember after that movie came out and after it became one of the most successful Disney movies, I remember reading. I was kind of reading about it, and I found this message board from before the movie came out, and somebody obtained a synopsis of the movie. This is what the movie's going to be. It was a pretty accurate synopsis. Like, it was really loose, but yeah.
How did you stumble on a pre-Frozen message board? I mean, what were you looking for?
I was looking for information about Frozen. I'll admit to that.
Okay, all right. Okay.
I have no problem with that.
Okay.
My name is Jay Hutch, and I enjoy looking at Frozen message boards.
Okay.
So I was looking at the message board, and they had a synopsis, and then somebody responded by saying that movie's not going to be successful. And they said, "Why?" And they said, "Well, there's no the princess doesn't marry the prince at the end, and that's the formula for Disney princess movies.
Right.
And if you alter that formula, it's not going to be successful." Well, cut to a year later, and it's the
Yeah.
most successful one ever. And I just think that I think that people have this, and studios have this perception, right, that the audience is not ready for something that takes risks and something that's a
Oh,
little bit
yeah.
idiosyncratic.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's true, and I think, there's so many examples that demonstrate that, like the fact that Tarantino's movies are so successful, and I just think that if people had access to these things, they would
Yeah.
enjoy it. But
Well, it's hard to say, isn't it? Because people do have access to them. Like, I
yeah,
mean, this is not. This is what number is this? Is this like 10? How many? I don't
Wes
count.
Anderson.
Eight, maybe.
I'm not sure. We could quickly run through it, but we're going to lose half of our 5 people,
Yeah, yeah,
which is mathematically impossible. But
yeah. In any case, so they're being made, and as you said, there's still, there the marketing budget is still small, and
yeah,
so I don't know. I'm not sure about that. I'd like to think so, but we may also have to accept that. I don't. I was about to say that we're in the minority, because we're not in the minority as far as Wes Anderson fans go. Like, there are many, many, many Wes Anderson fans go,
yeah.
but I think generally people don't want to be challenged in their entertainment, and so ideally, yes, but I'm not so sure.
Yeah. I think it's a very complicated issue, and I think too that I will accept the argument. I think it's a legitimate argument to say that so many people are run down just by the day-to-days of life and things like that, and if you spend all your day working and then
Yeah,
being a parent and all that, your instinct is probably not to see the foreign film about of that deals with class structure, although lots of people watch Squid Game. But anyway, that's one thing.
that's
um
yeah.
oh, but they're more likely to watch a superhero movie or something like that.
Well, I agree. I agree with that, and I sort of liken it to this: is that it's one of those things that would be good for you, but ultimately you tell yourself you're too tired to do it. Right? It's like I don't know. It's like exercising, right? Like,
Mhm.
yeah, I should do that, but I'm just too tired. I don't have the energy. And then you do it and you go, wow, I've got so much more energy. I'm going to do this every day. And then the
Yeah.
next day you go, oh man, that was great. I'm going to do that. Oh wait, I'm too busy. No, now I'm too tired. And you get into that funk. But because, okay, so I'll put it this way. So lately I've been watching sort of trash. Like, I've been tired. And last night I put this movie on, and I was, really into it because I knew we were going to talk about it. I made some notes, and the end, after, I was just feeling alive again, right? Like,
Right.
like, this is freaking great. Over the weekend, I watched Minari. I hadn't seen Minari yet,
Oh,
and
that's a great movie.
great movie. Victoria
Yeah.
hadn't seen Parasite, so we watched that, and I saw that again,
Also
and
a great movie.
also a great movie. And
Yeah.
you realize that how good this stuff is for you. Like, it's really good.
Mhm.
But ultimately, you're going to forget, and you're going to get tired again, and you're going to go back to watching Squid Game or
That's true.
whatever it is.
That's true.
Uh,
I should say I didn't mind it. I didn't mind that show. It was pretty good.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I still don't know how I felt about it. I felt like
It's
it was a few episodes too long, maybe. I don't
yes, I agree. I agree with that. I
know.
agree
Yeah.
with that.
So, what do you think of the ending? No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I think that that's true. But it's funny, I mean, to me, even movies, people will. I think when I say what some of my favorite movies are,
Yeah,
I'll say I like Wild Strawberries by Ingmar
yeah,
Bergman, or 8.5 by Fellini,
oh,
like
yeah.
Dolce Vita, and people are like, oh, that's
I
that's
know.
heavy stuff. I don't really think there's all that much going on in that movie
Yeah,
that's difficult, you know what I mean? Like
totally.
Wild Strawberries is about an old man driving across
Yeah,
the country to get an award. Like, it's not,
yeah.
I don't know. I think people psych themselves out a lot of times with a lot of these
I
movies.
think you're right. What do you think? What did I don't know if you've seen it. I haven't seen it, but what did you think about HBO remaking Scenes from a Marriage?
Oh, I haven't seen it either. To be honest, actually, I haven't even seen the original
Okay,
Scenes from a Marriage.
great. Well, it's so long.
Yeah, I actually am in the middle of a years long project of watching, because I had started watching his movies back when I was a teenager, but I
Yeah,
thought at one point I'm gonna actually watch it from a certain beginning point, because Bergman doesn't really become Bergman until a
yeah,
certain point. And
yeah.
then I thought, okay, I'm gonna watch them all in chronological order, because I didn't want to watch his last movie, Fanny and Alexander,
Oh, yeah.
until I had seen them all, basically. And so now I'm just going in chronological order. And just the other day, I watched Passion of Anna, I think, which is a late '60s movie. So there's a few, one or two more, and then I'm going to do Scenes from a Marriage, I think.
Oh,
But
nice, nice.
I don't mind them doing that remake. I mean, I think it's good. It's good source material, but
Mhm.
I just hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't supplant the original.
I can't imagine that it would, but I think they're quite different. I will see it, but it's one of those things where you just go, "Fuck, let's just make something new."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've been far off of Rushmore, by the way.
We have. I know. I'm sorry. So just to bring us a little bit back, because I suggested that Wes Anderson's movies are idiosyncratic,
Yeah.
and you know, I think that I, I I think that can kind of bring us back a little bit, because the character of Max, in the main character Max, played by Jason Schwartzman, is himself very
Oh,
idiosyncratic,
yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
he's a character that you, the characters in the story either love him or hate him,
Yeah.
right? Like the Bill Murray character, Herman Bloom loves him.
Loves him.
The teacher, Rosemary, has
Mhm.
a love-hate rela she, I think, respects in many ways what Max stands for, but obviously is kind of victimized by him.
Yeah.
And you have, the headmaster of this school, who hates him with a passion.
What do you want?
Yeah, later in the movie, he's in a coma, if you haven't seen the movie.
Wes Anderson wrote. It's the first words he said in 12 days. Fisher. Such a beautiful touch.
Yeah.
Hates him. Magnus. Magnus.
Magnus hates him. Every time Magnus comes on screen, I laugh.
Absolutely. It's such a
And
brilliant character. Can we just well, because I don't know how much we'll end up talking about Magnus, but can we talk about what a brilliant touch that ninja star that he throws when he reveals to Dirk that Fisher said that he was getting a hand job from Dirk's mom, and like just that little touch of of course Magnus is the kid that would be throwing a ninja star
yes,
in
yeah,
that.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Magnus. Yeah, no, that is great. There's so many great little touches like that in the movie. There's such attention, as always with Wes Anderson. There's so much attention to detail.
Yeah.
And then it gets crazier, because right after I watched Rushmore, and I won't take this too far afield again, but I turned on the Grand Budapest Hotel,
Oh yeah.
which, to me, those are the two great Anderson movies, and they're two very different kinds of Wes Anderson movies. But it, Grand Budapest is like a hyper Wes Anderson film,
Yeah.
and it's very extreme, but still extraordinarily detailed. There's just a lot more things to be detailed about in that movie than there is in Rushmore, just because there's ornate sets and things like that.
It's massive, right?
Yeah.
It's massive. It's a to me, yeah, you're right. It's a very different movie, and we talked about this briefly before, but I slot Grand Budapest into another I don't know what would we call it, like just another phase of Anderson's career that ended
Yeah.
with the Darjeeling Limited, but Yeah, great movie. And the touch, yeah, this was the first, like, for everybody who's seen Bottle Rocket, you start seeing what Wes Anderson and Owen Wilson were trying to do.
Mhm.
And with especially with the dialogue and the just the surrealism of all of it, but it's missing the detail, and obviously it's not anamorphic,
Yeah.
widescreen, and he was able to accomplish so much more uh, with this one. But the details throughout are really what gives it, not only it's easy to say the style, but that's where the heart of the and I mean of all of his films, but it starts here, right? Like
Yeah.
that's where the heart. And I think the greatest detail in there's two. They come at the end, and they're both gifts that Max was given. One is the Swiss Army knife that Dirk gives him,
Yeah.
and what's inscribed on it? It's Rushmore.
The class of,
No, it's
or
not.
no, the years 1985 to
Yeah, but
1998.
but it's I wrote it down.
Okay.
I'll look it up and I'll come back to it. But it's just the wording on it is so great.
Mhm.
And then the typewriter that his mom gave him,
Right.
that says "Bravo, Max, love, Mom," and that's the
Right.
only thing that we get from his mom, right? And
Yeah.
that's when he gets those. We see those two. He pulls that back out, but that's when he starts putting back together again, right? Oh,
Yeah.
Swiss Army knife. It says Rushmore Yankee,
Oh, yeah,
85.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
isn't that great? Like that,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
that touch, Rushmore Yankee.
The
Uh,
Rushmore Yankees.
yeah.
Which is funny because that's in that movie is set, although it never outwardly says, I don't think, but it's set in Texas.
Is that right? I didn't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. So one of the things that I read is that because Wes Anderson himself is from Texas,
Yeah.
and which is unusual. It's not. I mean, I don't want to
I,
generalize about Texans, but I just don't see Wes Anderson as a Texan.
yeah.
But
Owen
he
Wilson
is
more somehow. Owen
Owen
Wilson.
Wilson Moore. Yeah, yeah. But but when Wes Anderson started scouting for locations, apparently for the movie, he was scouting all over the place in England and things like that. And eventually, he realized he saw pictures of his old
Oh,
school,
right. Right.
and he said, "Okay, well, this is what I have in my head. Obviously, it's locked
Yeah.
in from when I was there." And so they decided to shoot it there at a lot of it there at the school.
So it was shot there, but was it actually set in Texas? I don't know if it was actually
That's a
set.
good question. I don't know. They don't say. They don't
Right.
say.
Right.
And it's a very overcast film. Like when I think of Texas again, I think of sun.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think East Coast.
I do too.
Yeah. And I mean, it gets more and more over. You notice that, right? Like that's again
Yeah.
a great detail. It gets more and more overcast
Yeah.
as things get darker and darker for Max.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and also I wanted, there's this quote that's in the movie that I wanted to read. And at one point early in the film, Max is in the library and
Oh,
he's
yeah.
reading this book
The
by
Cousteau quote.
the Cousteau quote.
Yeah.
And the quote, and I wrote this down today. It's when one man, for whatever reason, has he opportunity to lead an extraordinary life, he has no right to keep it to himself. And I kind of think, I don't know if this holds, but I have a theory that this quote might be a way to explain every single Wes Anderson movie.
Mm.
That there's something about it, I think, at work in all of them. For one, Cousteau plays a role. I mean, Life Aquatic is
Yeah.
a tribute to Cousteau.
Yeah.
And but that quote, there's a lot in that quote. There's a lot that's going on because this idea, for one, I like how it's not just when an extraordinary man, it's when he has the opportunity to lead an extraordinary life.
Hmm.
Right, which Max does. He's at this school, at least for a while, that affords him the opportunity to pursue all of these
Yeah.
various things, right? So one of the very interesting things about the movie, I think, is the fact that Max is in all of these clubs, right? And that's why he doesn't do well in school, because he's in every
Yeah.
club. He's the head of these clubs.
He's not just in. He's founded a lot
He's
of them.
he's founded them. He's the
Yeah.
president of them.
Yet
So
he's one of the worst students they've got.
and he's one of the worst students that they've got. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have that opportunity as much at his public school. He has some. He can still do his plays, and he still does a couple things, but he doesn't have the same kind of opportunity there. So there's something about Rushmore, and
Hmm.
they make it clear that Rushmore is a really important thing to Max Fisher throughout the movie.
Hmm.
And it's partly because it's the thing that gives him the opportunity to lead this extraordinary life. But also extraordinary, right? He's extraordinary. He's not an ordinary person, right? Just like these films are not ordinary films. They're extraordinary.
Well, yeah, I like what you're saying. Where I might tweak that is that I think that what it actually is that he believes, at least early on in the film, that it's Rushmore that gives him these opportunities to do these
Right.
extraordinary things. But by the end, we see that he's able to accomplish them despite not being part of Rushmore
That's
anymore.
true.
So it's
Yes.
actually it's that he part of this is his self-realization,
Yeah.
even though like the kid could not be more confident, could not be more self-realized.
Yeah.
Um, but it's his self-realization that he doesn't need to be in class, dreaming of solving the world's hardest problem at
Mhm.
Rushmore Academy. He's able to do these things despite, not having Guggenheim or Bloom or whoever it is. Like
Yeah.
he wrote a hit play. What the hell did you ever do?
Yeah. That's true. That's
Right.
true. Yeah. But
And the difference I think is him going through and realizing that like that's actually probably enough.
yeah, I think that that's true. So I suppose I will tweak it and say that Max knows how to take advantage of a good opportunity, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
So, he was able to do that at Rushmore, and yeah, he still has the opportunity to do that. He sometimes misses it a little bit, but
Yeah.
eventually it kind of clicks in.
Yeah, and it was his play, the play that he wrote that got him into Rushmore,
That's
right?
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
We should talk just a little bit about those clubs and that success that he has at Rushmore that Bloom. I always want to say Harold Bloom.
Yeah.
I always want to go Harold Bloom.
Well, there's
Right.
something about the names, right? I mean,
Yeah, well, totally. It's sorry, what's Bloom's first name?
Herman.
Herman, right. So
Yeah.
Herman Bloom sees and that anybody else and that Miss Cross sees at first, and
Mhm,
that he is this remarkable kid, and that
mhm,
Guggenheim would have seen early on. But he's this remarkable kid who is inevitably forced to be remarkable in a system that does not reward that remarkability,
mhm.
right?
That's right.
It's that all these things that he does that would be great once you've finished school and you've gotten the grades and you can do that in the world. But while you're young, you need to get the fucking grades and be part of the system. Otherwise, you're going to go on double secret probation or whatever, like whatever the Rushmore version of double secret probation is. I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's a great scene,
Yeah.
and it does take us back to our last discussion about self-direction, right? Is
Yeah.
that Max is a self-directed learner,
Yeah.
who is despite being a self-directed learner is trying to find a way to survive in this school that does not reward self-direction.
That's right.
Right? It rewards tradition and grades and moving through the system like you should. And that's why Bloom latches onto him because it's you can look at that speech, take aim at the rich kids
Yeah.
and get them in your crosshairs and without obviously Max lies to him. Sorry, I'm going on and on, but
No, please do.
Max lies to him at first about where he comes from, right? That his dad's a brain surgeon, a
Yeah.
neurosurgeon, but ultimately Bloom was he grew up poor and he was self-made and he did it himself and he sees this in Max as well from the start, and you see in that great scene where right away Bloom says it's pretty remarkable guy or sharp little guy.
Yeah.
Partially because Max compliments him,
Yeah.
but also because he sees something in him. And immediately Guggenheim's response is he's one of the worst students we've got.
Yeah.
And it like what a perfect way to illustrate what it means to be a self-directed learner in a system like this.
Well, and along those lines, like one of the things that a non-self-directed education system tries to do is it tries to prevent you from trial and error, let's say.
Yeah.
It wants you to
Yeah.
get things right the first time. And I see this a lot I may have said this back in our other episode, but I see this a lot in the university courses that I teach, where students come in and on the first day want to demonstrate to me that they already know the answers to everything that we're gonna
Right.
talk about throughout the
That's right.
term. And it's like that should not, if that is your approach to education, that you've got it on wrong somewhere.
Well,
Like
and you can't blame them for it.
no, you can't. You
Yeah,
can't.
because that is what they've been taught.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a dog that would like a biscuit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's right.
They learn that system of reward, and that's it.
Yeah, and that's what Dr. Guggenheim is trying to. Who Brian Cox is phenomenal in this film as Guggenheim.
But by the way, just really quick, do you know? Did you see why Brian Cox was chosen for this role, or why they really wanted Brian Cox?
No.
Because they loved him as Hannibal Lecter in Manhunter. Like, doesn't that say something?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yes, it absolutely does.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I think one of the great things about this movie is that you see Max as he is flawed. Like there's no doubt that he makes many mistakes in the movie. But for me, at least, he seems to learn from those mistakes, and he's trying to, like everything, right? Like he's essentially responsible for Herman Bloom's marriage falling apart, although clearly it wasn't in good shape before he came along. But he's responsible for that. He's treated Miss Cross very, very poorly throughout the film. And then he tries to sabotage that relationship. He treats Margaret Yang poorly, and she says that outright to him.
Yeah,
you're a real jerk to me. And he's tries to make up for those things, I think, and he's doing it very much on his own, right? He's doing it his own particular way.
Yeah, he is doing it on his own, but he can't do it without. It's not until that scene where Dirk comes to visit him in the barbershop that he realizes he needs to start putting things back together.
Yeah,
and he's been a real asshole. I think there's something really special going on in this film with the way it's separated into months, right?
Yeah.
And I think, I wrote a note last night, just something about, that this film is like a gross exaggeration of, like what growing up is, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a very fast, period. But Max goes through this, this sort of infantile obsession with Miss Cross, and then, heartbreak, and you know, being out of school, and you know, everything that you had dreamed of was going to be, you know, that what your life was going to be is ruined, and he's working in a barber shop. And there's that really heartbreaking scene where he's, you know, the one guy who has supported him through all of it, which is his dad, who is the sweetest man, and also what a great example of just pure support, right? Like if you're going to be like a you know, a parent,
a great dad, a great dad,
based on Charlie Brown's dad.
Oh, really?
Barber. Yeah. And Max was based on Charlie Brown. When you see that hat that he's wearing, very Charlie Brown-esque. Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So you get that heartwarming aspect of things. But you know, and he says, I'm a barber's son. And he really, you know, he's hit rock bottom. And then you get the scene where he is flying his kite, and Margaret Yang shows up with their plane, and it's like they're seeing it, you know, it's been, maybe it hasn't even been a month, but it's as if, you know, they're seeing each other after a couple years of being out of school, and you know, they've both gone off to university, and they're seeing, and she says she's matured, and she says, you were a real jerk to me. And he can start to atone for that then. But you just have this rapid progression of what it is to grow up.
And that's true.
It's so special.
I like that Margaret Yang is idiosyncratic too, because you know, that reveal where she talks about how she fudged the results of her science thing, like every like, you can tell why the characters sort of like each other, because Bill Murray's character is obviously very out of step with everything, and that's kind of solidified with that shot that Wes Anderson steals from The Graduate, which there's a lot of parallels between those two movies, but where he goes into the water at his son's party, he just doesn't fit in with anybody there at that party. He doesn't connect with anybody. And the fact that he went to this school or did he go to the school? Did he go to Rushmore? He did. So he clearly, you know, didn't quite fit in with people there as a kid. And so you have Miss Cross, who, am I saying that's her name, right? Cross?
Rosemary Cross.
She writes that Cousteau quote in the book, so she has an affinity for that sort of that personality. And then you have Margaret Yang, who is, you know, seems to be like, when you first see her, like they're showing the dioramas at the thing, and so and everybody's like surrounding her, so you get this idea that, oh, she's like the star, student. But she's not. She's just like Max, right? She's just faking it.
He's faking it.
So which I shouldn't say that's just like Max. They don't fake it, but they are not beholden to the system that they're in.
That's right. That's right.
And so you can sort of see how all those characters gravitate together, which is, I like your point about how, you know, he makes his change when Dirk comes into the barbershop, because the other sort of, I think, important part of that Cousteau quote, where when one has the opportunity to lead an extraordinary life, he has no right to keep it to himself. And the movie isn't just about, like, you know, the individualism. There is a kind of, it's about how we're all in this together to some degree, or I can try and bring this to all of you, and you can join me in this project.
Absolutely. And it is, and it, you know, that's why I think at the end as well, you get that mass ensemble of everybody was there, right, at the play. You know, it's not being kept, which also I think is so magical, because so much of Max's existence is he exists, you know, in his mind, right, as this larger than life guy, right? You know, you know, anytime you get his plays and there's applause, you get the overdubbed mass applause, right? When Max steps out on the scene, because that's how he hears it, right? And then you get the play at the end. I almost, you know, I had this thought. I don't think that this is what's going on, but you almost get this feeling at the end, like, wow, is this even in his imagination? Everybody, you know, everybody who he ran into on this journey is there in the audience. The police officers, the what's the What's the janitor has the best name.
Who's in a bunch of early Wes Anderson movies, right? He's in in fact he's a pretty prominent guy in Bottle Rocket, isn't he?
Yeah. What's his name? Oh man, I wrote it down because I just when I saw it.
Kumar Palana.
Yeah,
and Mr. Little Jeans.
Little Jeans, Mr.
Yeah.
Little Jeans, and his son is the teacher in the Daydream at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. But you know, everybody's there, and that's just so. I mean, it's very Fellini-esque as well.
Yes.
Right? Like,
yes.
Yeah. So you never know how much, and it's often when those plays are going on, how much of it is actually in Max's, you know, in the grandeur of his imagination, and how much of it isn't. And I think that's what I think is so magical, because that's what fucking adolescence is, and actually. That's what life is.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like,
that's right.
We make up a lot of shit about ourselves all the time just to make it through the day.
That's true.
You know?
That's true. Well, I think that's a very valid way of looking at it or thinking about it, because, of course, how does that movie begin but with a dream sequence, with a fake sequence, right? And, or something that's going on within Max Fisher's head. And he becomes a star, like he solves that big math equation on the blackboard, and everybody crowds him and tells him how fantastic he is. And that's kind of what happens at the end of the movie, right? He does this play, which is crazy. Like you to do a play like this in a high school, a public school, which is where he ends up. And you know, it's a it's like Platoon. He's doing a version of Platoon on stage.
Yeah. And
everybody
Bloom's
tells
story, right? Yeah, Bloom's version.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I thought about this. Like, is this kind of like a fairy tale at the end? But I also think, you know, what I just said about this idea of, you know, the idiosyncratic guy who brings all these other idiosyncratic people together. Again, I don't want to maybe draw too firm a point on it, but the Max Fisher as Wes Anderson kind of thing.
Right.
But again, like, that's Wes Anderson has sort of done that with his career, right? He brings a lot of the same people together. They make this movie. It's a crazy movie. It goes out there, it gets some attention, and then he goes on to do the next one.
Yeah.
There's a you know, a lot of sort of similarities there between those things.
Yeah. And I think the beauty is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's you know, a dream sequence or not, or it's just the similarity to life, which is so great. And that is just the greatest thing about this being a movie about adolescence and Max's adolescence and Rosemary's attempt to get back the past in some way, and Bloom, you know, wanting to revisit. You know, there's a reason that Bloom is back at Rushmore, giving a speech to begin with, right? Like he's looking for something. He's got these two jackass sons, and he's trying to figure out where he went wrong. So you know, it's I think everybody has you know, you know, you define your adolescence by the friends that you had, the experiences you had, the school that you went to, but mostly by, you know, your first real heartbreak. And that was the thing that, you know, I realized when maybe it was the second time I saw this film was what spoke to me as well, was that, wow, like, I know that feeling. I know that feeling of just wanting somebody to want me back so bad, and it's never gonna fucking happen. Like that has sailed. So you know, he just captures so much of that in so many ways.
And I think that there's a sense too with the Bill Murray character that there's a kind of an Arrested Development going on. Like, he didn't have that fulfilling of a school experience, and part of maybe why he makes that speech at the beginning is because he wants somebody to do what he never quite got around to doing. And then he goes off and fights in the Vietnam War, and clearly doesn't have closure about that because of his reaction to the play at the end. And I do think that there is this kind of like, at one point, Rosemary, who's the love interest of both Max Fisher and Herman Bloom in the movie, says, "You're very much alike. You're both what did she say? You're both two boys or something like that,
Yeah,
or
you're both children, or you're both.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Which is true of Herman Bloom, right? I
Oh,
don't think he fully ever quite grew up because he never accomplished what he wanted to accomplish at Rushmore.
yeah,
And Max is in some ways doing that for him.
yeah.
So if Max wants money to do something at Rushmore, he'll give him the money to do it. And um,
She, but the thing is that she's denying it, but that's what she loves about both of them,
mhm, mhm,
right?
mhm.
And that's what she loved about her husband,
Her
right? That he
husband,
was
yeah,
a boyish explorer.
yes. What was
Uh,
his name again?
oh,
I can't remember either, but they say it a bunch of times, and it has a real kind
it
of.
was another, yeah, another,
I'm gonna look it up. Hold
yeah.
on a second.
Um, uh, the other thing that I was going to say, just about that boyishness and the imaginary throughout, is the brilliant, almost action movie-esque dialogue, that those lines that play again and again throughout the movie, from that first moment where his teacher's reaction to solving, and the teacher goes, "You got it." Like, and I got punched in the face. What's your excuse? Or
Yeah.
what in the hell is that? When Dirk gives him the Swiss Army knife, or, he's like every line he's
Yes.
delivering as if
Yeah.
he is a star in his own, as if he's Tom Cruise in Top Gun, or whatever it might be.
Well, that's why I think, at the time, Bill Murray got a lot of accolades for this movie, and it was kind of the beginning of a turn in Bill Murray's career. Like
Yep.
he
Yeah.
started to make more serious movies. Although he's kind of mastered the kind of tragic comedy
Mhm.
role, or he did for a while. I don't know actually if he's ever entirely fulfilled what he wanted to with his turn. Like he's mostly done a lot of good Wes Anderson movies and Lost in Translation, and I'm not entirely sure outside of that if he's quite
There,
has been as successful as a serious actor. But
there's something that is so incredibly tragic about Bill Murray that I think maybe you're nailing it. It just feels like here's a guy he is beloved, right? Like he is truly beloved.
yeah,
But you really do get that impression that it was. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Rushmore was it. Maybe Rushmore was the one. But that despite all of it, that there's just a sadness that just radiates out of him so
yeah,
brilliantly
yeah,
that he doesn't even need to try, and it's whether he's on screen or not.
yeah. That's true.
And it makes him so perfect for this role. But
Yeah,
it is absolutely true.
and he is great in this movie. He deserved a lot of the accolades that he got.
Hmm.
But I think that kind of overshadowed Schwartzman, because
Yeah,
watching this movie again the other night, I think I maybe it's kind of a happy accident, but like I think because it was Schwartzman's first movie that he was maybe trying really hard,
yeah, and
and
it,
and that really works for that role.
well, yeah, and you almost go, wow. Is that part of what's so responsible for the dialogue delivery in the Wes Anderson movies that follow?
Right.
Right? Like all of them, the dialogue is consistently being delivered as if it's two kids on a stage in like a high school play
Right.
delivering lines. Like just the timing is just that off, just that
Yes.
slightly off, where they're not really listening to each other. They're delivering their lines, right? And I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I think Jason Schwartzman is brilliant in it, and I fell in love with him, and really, just thought like, wow, he is the greatest. Um,
Well,
uh,
that's my thought is I don't know if it's if it's a consciously great performance
well,
or if it's
he's never repeated.
no, he hasn't. He
No,
hasn't.
he really hasn't, and he's tried, and I've liked other stuff that he's done, but he's never managed to do this, and it's
No.
because of that innocence, for sure, for
There's
sure.
that bit where where they're on the what are those is there a name for those seats that like the tiered seats that you sit on in the
The
gym and
bleachers, the,
yeah.
They're in like the indoor bleachers, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like bleachers,
Yeah.
yeah. But these ones were outside in the movie. I mean, they're inside too. But when he's sitting there and he's with Miss
Mhm.
Cross,
Yeah.
and and she says something in Latin, and he's like, "What's that?" Oh, that's Latin, isn't it? Anyway, and it's such a it
Anyway.
is like a really weirdly delivered line, but it's just perfect for that character.
Well, and he does that at the beginning with Bloom too. Anyway, I really think you were right about Rushmore. And he says it twice, right? But there's just this oddness
Yeah.
about him that you can't imagine Wes Anderson directing that, right?
No,
Like
no.
you can't
Yeah.
imagine that.
But it is perfect for the movie, and I think there's so many great like every performance in it is really good. Her, by the way, her husband's name is Edward Appleby.
Oh yeah, Appleby, so great.
Um, but Olivia Williams is really good in it, and Seymour Castle is good as the father.
Seymour Castle is beautiful, but let's just talk about Olivia Williams just for 1 second,
Yeah,
because I, I don't know. I don't know if it's because now I'm the Harold Bloom watching this, years and years after I'd seen it.
Herman Bloom.
Did I say Harold?
Yeah,
See, Herman Bloom. But my God, she is picture perfect in that role, and I'm not just talking about how absolutely stunning she is, because it is so much more than that. It's the depth of her character. It's the way that she understands these guys.
yeah,
It's the way she speaks, and just how deep she is when she's connecting with something. But I just felt like that role couldn't have been cast more perfectly.
yeah. It seems
I
like she was perfect for that role.
just completely perfect.
Yeah,
I was just in awe. Maybe more than I was in awe. It was almost, last night as I was watching it, it was almost as if I was watching her for the first time in it. She is just
yeah.
perfect in it.
Yeah, when she's angry, she's genuinely angry.
Yeah, yeah,
When she's being normal, she's very sweet. Like you could just see, people like this in real
yeah,
life, right? They're incredibly sweet, and you think that they're never anything but that.
yeah,
But then eventually you see that they can get upset about
yeah.
things, and it's like, whoa, I didn't think that you had that in you.
Well, that scene in the classroom, right, where
Yeah,
she starts, calling him on his
yeah,
shit, and what he had tried to kiss her, and pathetically falls into those boxes,
yeah,
and he eventually sort of runs away, right?
yeah.
And
That's right.
it's incredibly deep, and then you really get the depth of her character when Max has come in through her bedroom window and puts on that. At some point we need to talk about the music, but that
Yes, yes,
Yves Montand
yeah,
song, which is so perfect for that scene. And she's talking about her dead husband, and Max keeps bringing it back to one dead little finger, and,
yeah,
and
yeah,
she's
yeah,
forced to confront that, right?
yeah,
Like they're all confronting
yeah,
something that's been lost at some point, and that's her moment to do it, and she does it so beautifully.
yeah, yeah. That's a great moment. That's a great moment. She's fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the music.
Oh,
When I first, like I said, I saw the movie in the theater. Um, I I had seen movies with good soundtracks before, like Pulp Fiction had a good soundtrack to it, very kind of famously had a good soundtrack. Martin Scorsese's movies have a lot of good music in them.
yeah,
But this was the first movie that I remember seeing where it was playing he was putting in obscure songs or deep cuts of things like Nothing in This World to Stop Me Worrying About That Girl by the Kinks, like
yeah,
this really obscure song from their second album that
yeah,
would have been forgotten had it not have been for it being in this movie.
yeah,
And Making Time by The Creation,
yeah,
which when that came on in the theaters, I hadn't heard that song before at that point,
yeah,
but when that song bursts out at the beginning of the movie after he's the worst student we have here, it's like
And burst is a great word.
Yeah.
That's what the music does. Oh,
Yeah.
Yoko, like
Oh,
the
Yoko is fantastically
yeah,
placed in the movie.
yeah,
Yeah, so many, and of a style, like it's mostly sort of British 60s
yeah,
songs, but it was, and because of that, I remember at the time thinking, this is a movie for the first time that's playing music that I love. Like I love every single song in this
yeah.
movie.
Well, I know you're a huge Kinks fan, right?
Yeah.
And I had read that initially he wanted all the music in the film to be Kinks.
Yeah, I remember that.
Uh,
I remember that. That was in the liner notes
yeah, yeah, that's right.
soundtrack. I remember that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened with that, but yeah, and I think he's credited Mike Nichols as well with sort of, it's not just like he doesn't just lift some of the visuals from Mike Nichols, but music is very prominent in Mike Nichols. And I think the wind is in The Graduate as well, obviously, right? And he's got the wind here. I
Is
think
it?
I think it is. Yeah,
Okay.
we should look it up. Uh,
Keep going. Fill the
but
space, and
but
I'll look that
but
up.
I fully agree that yeah, Tarantino uses music a little bit differently than this. It's not he uses music as, the way that action movies in the 80s sort of used music, over these slow-mo, like, explosion sequences, but he's doing it so artistically, where he is the music, it becomes one with the scene, where you're getting everything that you need. You couldn't have that scene without that song, right? Without that
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
Um, so and I don't know if anybody has truly accomplished that the way that he did, particularly in this and in the Royal Tenenbaums.
Well, and I've discovered songs like
Yeah.
he's enriched my iPod, which I still use. Actually, it's actually not the one that you
Oh my,
gave,
I was
or
gonna
is it?
say, come on.
I think I gave that one to my dad. I think my dad has that one.
I'm well, you know what? Actually, I'm very touched.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
but he's enriched my music collection, certainly.
Oh yeah,
Wes
I,
Anderson.
yeah. Well, I think anyone who's a fan of his movies would say the same thing.
Yeah,
The music is a big part of that. Uh,
yeah.
sorry, was The Wind in The Graduate or no?
I don't think so. Because that movie was almost exclusively Simon and Garfunkel,
Right.
right? So,
Okay.
but you know what movie I think it was in? Because I remember being in another movie from the same time, roughly the same time that Rushmore was out, in the
Yeah.
same era, and I think it was in Almost Famous. But
I don't think it was in Almost Famous.
okay, now I'm gonna look this up, and it may have been it may have been in Harold and Maude, because Harold.
I think it was in Harold and Maude.
Yeah.
I think it was in Harold and Maude. Harold and Maude is Mike Nichols, right?
No, Harold and Maude is is Hal Ashby.
Oh, right. Okay. I think it was in Harold and Maude.
It could have very well been. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Next time we got to do a podcast dedicated to the wind.
Just the movies with the wind in it. I think
right.
we'll do
right.
that.
That's right.
That is, I mean, yeah, the wind is a fantastic song as well.
Yeah.
In fact, that was the first time that soundtrack was what made me realize that Cat Stevens was a British musician.
Oh, is that right?
I was like, this guy's not British.
Oh,
To me, he sounds very American.
I've never thought about it, to be honest with you. I've never really thought about it.
I always thought he had an American. First of all, I always thought like he sounded, when I was a kid and my dad would always play father and son.
Yeah.
I thought Cat Stevens was like 70 years old.
Right.
Which I guess he is roughly now. He's probably older than 70 years old now, but at the time I think he was like 20.
Yeah, right. He's always been that age, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. So, but yeah, the music in this is phenomenal. And in the latest movie, The French Dispatch, there wasn't that much by way of music.
Is that right? Yeah. See, that's what I mean. I really do feel like, after the Darjeeling Limited, which was also very, very music oriented, that even though you still get music in his films, there was a bit of a shift away a little bit away from music, at
Yeah.
least.
Well, partly he's doing these period movies, right? So,
Right.
there's
Yeah.
like the Kinks wouldn't fit in as well in like the Darjeeling Limited or in like the French Dispatch. I have a theory about i- the differences that you're perceiving between the different eras
Yeah.
of Anderson, though, and that is like I have this theory about a lot of art, which is that when an artist is first starting out, they don't really know what their thing is, right? They're like they want a thing, but they don't know what their thing is. Like they're heavily influenced by other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
What was it? The Anxiety of Influence. Didn't Herman Bloom write that? They 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 don't know what it is, and then eventually they kind of figure out what it is,
Yeah.
and then they do that in an extreme way,
Yeah.
right? So
And
like
most are doomed by that.
a lot of people are like
Yeah.
we just talked about Fellini, and I love like Fellini is like you can tell his early movies are these neorealist kind of movies, which a lot of them are great. Like La
Mhm.
Strada is a beautiful
Yeah.
movie, and Knights of Cabiria, and but then he does like La Dolce Vita, which is Fellini. I mean that is
Yeah.
him
Oh, yeah.
finding what his thing is, and then Eight and a Half. But then after that, like it's like Juliet of the Spirits, which is a good movie, and like Satyricon and movies like that. Now I'm
Yeah.
starting to sound like the guy in the line in the movie, but he is like pushing. Is like, oh, there's that thing that I do in Eight and a
Yeah.
Half and Dolce Vita. I'm gonna do an extreme sort of version
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
And you do see that in a lot of great artists that they kind of have they have this great moment
Yeah.
at the mid period of their career. And I think that's happened to Wes Anderson, although I think he's managed to still make great movies, um, despite the fact that he's getting more and more arch
Mm.
Andersonian, if I may use a Eileen Jones phrase.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think yeah, I think for me what it is so I have this thing, and I was talking to a friend the other day about it, that every time Wes Anderson puts a movie out, I'm equally uh, excited and terrified to see it, because I really want to love it, and I'm terrified that it is not going to capture the heart of my three favorite are, the Royal Tenenbaums, Rushmore, and The Life Aquatic, and I think that there's serious heart to those movies, and I love Grand Budapest, I love the others, but I don't know if he has been able to continue to capture the heart and the how sad those movies are. Like they're so incredibly sad, and which is what makes them so great. And I think what I love so much about his early work is the sadness mixed with the humor. And each time I really want to feel that, and sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. But I know for many people, myself included, the Darjeeling Limited was the first sort of misstep, as far as West End. And I even hesitate to call it a misstep, but it was the first one to feel like he was continuing to try to do something that maybe he has done, or maybe that maybe it's run its course. I don't know what it was, but I continue every now and then to watch it, and I probably like it a little bit more each time I see it, but it's missing something as far as, even though it's sad, like it's very sad, but I'm not
See,
sure
I like Darjeeling. The one I think that I'm most out of step with in terms of people's opinion is Moonrise Kingdom, which people will, if they were naming their favorite ones, that one would probably be up there for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's amazing to me. I like it, but
yeah, I like it too. But like you say, it's not quite the same as some of those other ones. There's you're a dog man. That sounds like an insult, but I don't mean it that way.
I do love dogs.
You love dogs. So what do you think of Isle of Dogs?
The funny thing. So when the first time I saw that, I think Zola was 3 maybe, and I took her to see it because I was like, it's cool. I like to expose her. I don't really censor things
Sure,
as far as she goes. She
sure.
probably knows more than she. I don't know. I've stopped questioning this stuff, and I'm just going to go with it because
Right. Okay.
I
Okay.
was I was I'll do a brief tangent. I was explaining to a friend the other day that we were talking about, what sort of advice do you give to kids, and you want to make sure that you're not fucking them up, but you also don't want to encourage them to go down a path that is, they're going to close all these doors. And I started to fucking realize that that's all bullshit because we don't fucking know. Like
Yeah.
we question shit all the time. So the
Yeah.
best thing you can do is stop trying to hide shit from them or to protect them or pretend that you fucking know when you don't, right? You
Right.
don't know, so just be honest, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
Like, provide them with safety, but it's
Yes.
okay for them to know that you don't know. Anyway, so I took her, and I feel like my experience watching it was I was so overly concerned with, fuck, is she entertained by that? Like, is
Right.
this stimulating her or not? Or
Right.
actually, she loved it. She
Right.
loved
Right.
it. She probably liked it more than I did.
Right.
Um,
You were
and
worrying the whole time.
yeah, so it's another one of those Wes Anderson that I think is beautiful and phenomenal. But I don't go back to it like I do
Right.
those big three.
Right. 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 Yeah.
What do you think of?
I think it was the one I connected with the least so
Yeah,
far. And I think that I don't know why. I think I really like Fantastic Mr. Fox a lot. I
yeah.
think that's a great one. And so maybe it just felt like it
I don't
didn't
know if
feel like
there's any likable characters in Isle of Dogs.
there
Like,
might not be. There might not be.
yeah,
I can
nobody's
barely even remember it, to
really.
be
Yeah,
honest.
I know that's it. Um,
That's the problem. It's the one of the ones I've seen the most recently, and it's the one I remember the least, which
yeah,
is but I mean that kind of makes me think a little bit of like Tarantino, right, is quite famous now for saying that he's only going to do 10 movies. His next movie will be his last one
that's fucking
because
bullshit. I don't believe it. Do you believe that?
yeah, I do. I do because I really like Tarantino, but I think that
Yeah,
he's too proud of a
right,
person
right.
to go back on that. Maybe 10, 15 years down the road he'll make another one, or 20 years or something like
What
that.
did he say? He wants to go on and write plays? Is that
Write novels, write plays,
a novel? Recall. He already did a play, right? The Hateful Eight was a play. Like, let's be honest, that
The
was.
Hateful Eight was a play. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Um,
Have you seen any Robert Altman movies?
yeah, yeah. The Player, Shortcuts.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
See, what I was saying before about Anderson and this idea of the kind of um, that quote, if you have the opportunity to lead an extraordinary life, he has no right to keep it to himself. Like I think certainly stylistically, you can't really compare Anderson and Altman. They're very different, but I think that that they both have the same sort of ethos in a way. Like um, they're both filmmakers gather like groups of friends together and make it in a kind of an
yeah,
enjoyable experience. And it's still the one person's vision, but it's a very collaborative. I think was reading something that was a lot saying something not about the Altman thing,
mhm,
but that Anderson has a very kind of
yeah,
collaborative environment. And I think again that kind of holds to what we're seeing with Max in the movie, right? That he has this grandiose vision, but it's like this thing where he wants everybody to come along with him and sort of uh
yeah.
not even just like
He
help him,
does.
but they bring something to him as much as he brings something to them. Because when he first casts Margaret Yang
Yeah,
in his plays, he casts her in these very stereotypical uh almost racist Asian depictions.
right.
And by the end, uh she's speaking as herself. It's her voice rather than a kind of an accented voice. And so, like, I think that he's learning because of his collaboration with other people as well.
Yeah, again, I think that goes right back to that scene where Dirk comes and visits him, and he just goes, yeah, like I can't do it alone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Even though he's still the big cheese, right? And when he
Yeah.
take dictation, and Dirk is so happy to be taking dictation again.
That's true. Which, do you think that's the relationship? That was the relationship between Wes Anderson and Owen Wilson?
Well, so I was listening to, or maybe I was reading about this, and the way that they worked was, they would write scenes, and Wes would give it to Owen, and Owen would cross stuff out and give it back, and Wes Anderson would say, rather than, I always felt like the crossing out was really harsh. I would just not type, the stuff that I didn't like. I would just leave it out.
Right. Right.
Ultimately, there were scenes in the movie that that Wes Anderson put in that Owen Wilson really didn't want to have in. Notably, the scene where the really uncomfortable scene where Max forces himself on Rosemary. That scene where he goes to kiss her and she pulls away, and he keeps doing it, and it's you really go like, fuck, like,
yeah,
you got to stop.
Yeah.
And apparently to this day, Owen Wilson is very uncomfortable with that scene.
Right.
There's also a story that I found very awkward, that initially Rosemary and Max were supposed to make out in that bed, like when he goes, and they couldn't find a way to write it. They just couldn't find a way to make it work.
I'm glad that they didn't do that.
Yeah, well, but Jason Schwartzman had heard about that on the set, and he was insistent that he talked about it constantly throughout the shoot. We got to do that scene. We got to do that scene. He made them shoot it, and it sort of made me feel like, oh, is he a bit of a creep? Like, that's a little creepy. Like, that is, it's a little creepy.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, and so
I'm glad that they didn't do that. It's funny though, because he does do, like, you could say that he's very creepy with Miss Cross, but he also attempts to murder Herman Bloom twice.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because for every time I think about Rushmore, it's those exchanges.
Right.
It's the back and forth between the two of them. And last night I wrote a note to myself, just noting that I always thought that those exchanges were so much long. It was so much more a part of the movie, because it's it's so brilliant, right? Like, that is just so brilliant when they just start going back and forth, and it escalates and escalates. And yeah, he's tried to kill him a couple of times. And for the first time, so the first sort of the go at him is when he puts the bees in the room, and there's just that really incredible look that when Bloom sees the hose, and he smiles.
Yeah, and like, okay, now we're on.
Yeah, but it's also a fucking right. Yeah, good for you.
Respect.
And then you get the scowl, like,
That's right.
But don't think I'm gonna lie down. And he goes and he runs over his bike, and then Max cuts his brakes, and then Max, and then for the first time you really see what a bitch Bloom is when he reports Max to the cops.
That's right.
He's a real bitch. Like, that is a bitch move. And then Max does the same thing when he goes and he tries to get Miss Cross fired. And Guggenheim has that great line where he said, "I never took you for an informant, Max." Yeah. Which is like, again, very action movie-esque, right?
That's
but
right.
It's great because finally you just get somebody going, "What are you doing? Who you're bigger than this, and you're losing it." Yeah, it's the first real sign that he is.
Yeah.
So it's even more parallels there, where they're the same. They're the same.
That's
people.
Right. Well, and again, like, when he puts the bees in Bloom's hotel room, and he does that little smile, like that's when he kind of recognizes that Max is really taken Bloom's advice at the
Yeah,
beginning of the movie to heart.
that's that. Yeah, it's almost a conceited smile.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. He's learned that the student has become the master.
Yeah, that's right. It's so subtle as well, though, right? It's also
Yeah,
subtle.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think what Bloom ultimately wants um, is is a father like Max has, right? Like,
Mm,
it comes together at the end, in that when they reconcile, right? When Max calls him to the bar. I love how it all happens in the barbershop, by the way.
mhm,
I
mhm.
love that.
Yeah.
And it happens with Dirk there. It happens, with Bloom, and that beautiful expression that only happens momentarily on Bloom's face when Max says, "I'd like you to introduce you to my father," and
Mm,
in that one look, he fully gets who Max is.
yeah,
You're me, right? Like, you're
yeah,
me.
yeah,
Um, and all maybe all it would have taken for Bloom is a dad like Max that
mm,
has that supportive dad, right? That didn't pressure him into being, a steel tycoon, the monopoly guy, or whatever it is. There's this great line that Max's dad has, that he says, to Max, and I just think this says it all. He says, "I like being a barber. I'm good at it, but I always thought you'd try a different line of work. You talked about being a senator or a diplomat."
right.
Yes, those are pipe dreams. But his dad says it just matter of factly, like, "Yeah,
That's
you
right.
always talked about doing that. No pressure, like, no
Right.
pressure to do those things. Hey, whatever you've wanted to do, whatever you
Yeah.
follow
As
your
I was
heart."
watching the movie this time, it occurred to me that there was only one time when the father kind of tries to discourage Max, and it's and it's after he lets him out of jail, and Max says, "I gotta go get someone fired," and
Yeah,
he says, "I don't think that's a good idea, Max."
and he leaves it at that.
That's it.
And you know what? There's a very there would be a lot of temptation when you're writing that part to write the father as pathetic, or as castrated, or as too lost after losing his wife, too sad. It's none of that.
No,
It is a,
no.
a truly beautiful human being who loves his son with everything,
Yeah,
but is not going to ask him to be anything that he's not.
yeah.
You
Yep,
know,
yeah,
because he knows that anything you said. And here's another point. That when we see that typewriter that his mom gave him, bravo Max,
mhm,
love mom. That's why Max is still writing plays,
yeah,
because his mom said, "You're a writer. Here, take that." That's
yeah,
that's that's maybe one of the only times somebody in his life told him what he was,
yeah,
grasped onto that. And you know what? That's what we do when we're young,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah.
what we do.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, so such a great movie overall. And one other thing, just to again to lend to the sort of fairy tale aspect of the film too, like the movie does end with the curtains closing as
Yeah,
well.
that's
So
right.
there is this kind of actually the curtains close. It's weird. It's both so much a part of this movie and also so very oddly reminiscent of David Lynch,
I've
which
heard.
is
Yeah.
which is very weird.
Yeah.
But
I had thought about that, but you're right.
yeah, but two extremely different vibes going on
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's another idiosyncratic filmmaker right there,
That's right.
David Lynch.
I had totally forgot. I had planned to spend the time with my drink here and pouring a little bottle of booze into it, and I had completely forgot. My brother, brilliantly, to this day, whenever we're going anywhere, he goes, "Well, should we bring a Bill Murray?" Meaning just pouring a little
That's
something.
fantastic.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah,
My favorite part of that moment is he's got the cigarette in his mouth, and then it's like halfway done, and he puts
He's
another
like,
cigarette in.
and uh, and there's that line. Oh my God, that's perfectly vulnerable line. Max asks him, "Are you okay?" And he said,
Oh yeah,
"What did he say? I guess I'm a little bit lonely these days."
yeah, yeah.
Crushing. Like
It
that's
is, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And okay, one question, because you said before there's no missteps in this movie, but there's one thing that every time I watch, I try and figure out why it's happening, and I don't understand why it's happening. I
Okay,
don't know if there is. I don't know if I need to know why, or if it's just. I think it's just a Bill Murray improv, personally, and they just decided to keep it in.
yeah.
Where he goes to see Miss Cross. Do you know what I'm talking about?
And I can talk about this.
Okay, okay. If it is, I hope this is the
Yeah, it
moment.
is.
Goes to see
Go for
her,
it.
and he's trying to tell her that Max is sorry for his latest stupid thing that he's done, and with her, and and then he's finished with the conversation, and she goes back to work with her students who are painting, and he just turns around and just starts running. The running, I don't understand that at
It's
all.
it's brilliant. It's so that he has an excuse for why his heart is beating out of his chest when he goes back to Max, because he's falling in
Oh,
love with her in that moment,
right.
right? So he's
Right. Wow.
isn't that great? And I
Yes.
know that actually because uh that is I read that, and that was Wes Anderson went up to Bill Murray and he said to him, "How do you feel about sprinting away at the end of the scene?" And Bill Murray goes, "Oh, so I have an excuse for why my heart's beating out of my chest. Yeah, I can do that."
Wow.
And it's so great because it's so odd, right? And it's fitting with like a lot of like it's also very childish, right? Like it's also
Yeah.
very like I for years I was just like that's just so brilliant because he's just playing like he's just illustrating what a child Bill Murray is
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
enjoying these child games. But when you
yeah,
think about it like that, because he's going back to Max
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and he's panting, right? Because
Right,
he's realized in that moment that shit, I love her too.
right,
And
right.
this is his excuse for that.
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't
That's
that great?
amazing. That's cool.
I know.
That's pretty cool. I'm
Yeah.
glad you had an answer to that. Holy cow. Thank you.
I I love it. I love it. Yeah.
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 Well, do you have any other thoughts about this?
I have a lot, and I've got a lot of stuff that I wrote down, but I feel like at the one this one other one that I'd love to get your opinion on.
Yeah.
The name Rosemary. So I know that Wes Anderson's talked in the past about being really influenced by Polanski and Rosemary's Baby in
Mhm.
particular. And I was thinking about this last night, and I was thinking, okay, is Rosemary a nod to Rosemary and Rosemary's Baby? And I thought, if it is, it's sort of perfect because Rosemary in that movie is this woman who is manipulated, who's
Mhm.
walked over, who is sort of um, just sort of transplanted into this place that where all these people around her are controlling her, and
Mhm.
she doesn't really know what's going on. She's struggling for her independence, and no matter what she does, she can't escape this,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Mhm.
um and I don't think that Miss Cross eventually gives birth to Satan's baby. But I think if that's the case, then like we could spend another hour and a half really getting into how detailed he's really going, right? Like,
Yeah.
maybe that's very much in the vein of Lost as well, right? Where all of the names are,
That's true, our
every name
references
has,
to
yeah,
something.
yeah,
Well, I do think that a lot of the names are meaningful.
yeah,
And I think that that's certainly quite possible. I would the only thing I would say is that I think that, the way you were describing Rosemary from Rosemary's Baby, where she doesn't know what's happening through
yeah,
most of that movie. Like, she just doesn't quite she certainly doesn't understand that her husband anyways, we
your
won't get into
husband, yeah,
Rosemary's Baby.
yeah,
But it strikes me that Rosemary and Rushmore really knows what's going on. Like, I think that she's more aware
yeah,
of
you're right. She
what's
does,
happening.
but she's she's more aware, but she can't escape it.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
But even
I
in
don't
that
know. Yeah,
inability to escape it, she's like I think that line is
I think you're
great
right. I think you're right.
when Max
Yeah,
goes and says to her, like, Herman is building this aquarium for you. And she says, I never asked anybody to
yeah.
build me an
I never
aquarium.
asked you.
Which is a great line, you know. It's
It's
like, and again, that speaks to all that kind of like that the whole history of like men making these grandiose
right.
gestures. It's like I
Also,
don't
maybe he's rewriting Rosemary.
rewriting Rosemary. There, I like that. We
Yeah,
there's
ironically enough, that was the original title for Rushmore.
rewriting Rosemary. Well, I
Yeah,
think we should write a book of film criticism
yeah,
on Wes
that's
Anderson
right.
and call it Rewriting Rosemary.
Do you know what the original premise of Rushmore was going to be?
No, I didn't even I didn't know it was anything
It
other
was
than
going to
that.
be Max was it was going to be Max trying to become the headmaster of Rushmore Academy and going to war with Guggenheim.
It's
Wouldn't you
like
like to see that movie as well?
that would be great.
Yeah,
That would be great.
yeah,
It
yeah.
would be. That's funny. Uh,
Um,
yeah, that's really funny. I do like the whole Max Guggenheim relationship is so good.
it's great. Yeah. Yeah,
And
and
I
I
again
think
just
I think what makes those relationships so great is that Max uh, it doesn't treat any adult as if they're an adult, you
yeah.
know, or as if he's a kid, right? That's what's
I was thinking too, like there's definitely like I know that Wes Anderson is very it's in that article by Eileen Jones, in fact, where how he has a big affection for New Yorker, the New
yeah,
Yorker and New Yorker writers.
yeah,
To me, there's the writer that I think of first when I think of the New Yorker is J.D. Salinger,
yeah.
and I think that there's a lot of Salinger in
Oh
Wes
my God.
Anderson,
Oh yeah,
and certainly I think
especially there. Yeah,
certainly Royal Tenenbaums there's a lot and but also like Salinger's kids are always wiser than you would
hmm
expect kids to be like certainly wiser than kids are normally depicted in films and books and things like that
yeah.
and you know Rushmore is or Fisher is 15 in this movie and I don't know how old Holden Caulfield is in Catcher in the Rye, but he's around
Maybe
16,
around
maybe.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, and so you know, I think that there's a lot of that going on where his kids are often very wise,
yeah.
you know, flawed, just like Holden Caulfield is, but you know, is
Have we talked about this with Holden Caulfield? Was it you that I was talking to about this that went back and read it years after reading it as a teenager and you know as a teenager you read in Holden Caulfield's like a god and you read it as an adult and you just think Holden Caulfield's an asshole.
well,
Somebody told me that I haven't gone back and reread Catcher in the Rye.
yeah,
Um, maybe that was what I was afraid of with going back to rewatch Rushmore.
I
Is that did you steal that from your high school? Like that looks like a high school English copy.
no, I think it's an original. I think it's an
Okay.
original. I
Yeah.
didn't pull a Lasko.
Oh yeah.
But I no, I don't think he's an asshole. I think he's extremely sad though. I think that
Yeah.
Caulfield's very very sad.
Yeah.
Um, um, but I think though that that's like people like I'm a big Salinger fan, and I think people kind of get the wrong idea about his stories because I think people say they hate the Catcher in the Rye because they're like I hated that character Holden Caulfield, but like you to me, I read him and I don't think at this point, like you're right, in high school you think he's a god. But at this point, I don't hate him. And I don't think you're supposed to hate him, but I do think you're supposed to have a lot of pity for this
Yeah.
guy. Like
Well, maybe
he's
that's what it is. Maybe you just pity him more
yeah,
than you did
yeah,
when you're young. Um, and you know, I think that that sort of brings it full circle here, right? Because that there's that lens of viewing this world that you can pity and look down on somebody like Max, or you can try to live it with him, right?
yeah.
Like Bloom does, and all you know, Bloom fails at it, right? Bloom inevitably just becomes an extreme, a sadder version of himself.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. But I will say, like, I remember when I watched this movie, as I said, I was 18 and I saw it in the theaters. And, I'm not one to think that I need to connect with, like, I need to see myself on the screen when I watch a movie. But I will say, when I saw Rushmore for the first time, I was like, this, I've never seen a character who I feel like
Yeah.
more kinship with
Right.
than with this character.
Right. Yeah, I totally get that. I could still see you like that.
Which is interesting because I watched it with Gina the other night, and her main discussion afterwards was how much she hated Max Fisher. So, that's not a good sign. But well, okay. Should we wrap it up, or do you want to?
I guess so. I mean, yeah. Let's wrap it up.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I mean, there's other stuff, but
you should show your pen. Show your pen.
Oh yeah, so there. Okay, so I got this years ago. It's a patch, and I've been meaning to put it on a blazer, and I pulled it out for today. But I got this from a friend of mine, owns a store in Hamilton, like a vintage store called Girl on the Wing, and she sells this stuff. I also got a Sunnydale one, a Sunnydale.
Oh yeah.
Patch. But yeah, pulled that out for tonight. I never really thought about the bee on there, which is sort of funny, right?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's funny. Oh yeah, because he's the beekeeper.
Yeah. Oh, that's right, the Beekeeper Society. There you go.
Yeah. That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you want to? Last time you were on, you plugged something. Do you want to give it a shout out again, or do you want?
Yeah, actually, you know what? It's good timing because Giving Tuesday is coming up, I think, next week, and Passages Center, which is again a center for self-directed learners, is very worthy of a gift if you're thinking about giving on Giving Tuesday. So yeah, check out Passages Toronto on Ossington.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Joe, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks. I hope it was good.
Oh, this is so interesting, and I think again, I knew that you liked Wes Anderson, but I did not know until we just started talking tonight that this was your favorite movie. So I'm really glad that I'm glad that I asked you, and I'm glad
I am
that,
too. And that you postponed it for me. You had asked me a while ago, and I was unable. So thanks for postponing it. And
well, the timing worked out perfectly. So yeah,
great.
I'm happy to do it.
Well, I'm still waiting on the invitation to come back to discuss Lost. So
we should do that. We should absolutely do that.
Oh my God, we have to go back and do that. One day we'll do it.
We will do it. Yeah. Absolutely. In the sideways world. Well, that's it. If anybody has made it to the end of this, God bless. And also,
can't you see they're all there? Everybody that was here through this whole journey, they're all here in the audience. Can't you hear the applause?
I can hear it in my head.
We made a hit podcast. What the hell did they do?
Oh, we didn't even talk about Luke Wilson in this movie, but anyway.
Oh my God! Well, arguably the greatest scene in the film.
That's right,
and the greatest line. Are they?
Oh, are they? And the fact that, and I guess I must have picked up on this before, but the fact that he never calls him by his name ever.
You know what my favorite part of that is when he hits Luke Wilson's hand with the spoon.
Yeah.
Do you want me to pass you the milk, guy?
And I think that was it. Like this time around, I think I always thought that he was calling him like I thought maybe I was just confused. He was calling him Guy, like his name was Guy. Like no, he's using Guy.
And the best is at the end of it, Herman's just mortified that this is happening.
Yeah.
And he's like, maybe you should calm down. And Miss Cross goes, you're the one that ordered him whiskey and soda.
Oh God, that's amazing.
And apparently that "Oh, are they" line was Luke Wilson wrote that line.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Those Wilsons.
And the third Wilson is the other Wilson is the gym
the gym coach. Yeah, that's right. He was also great in the movie.
Yeah, that's right.
He calls him Maxie.
Maxie.
Yeah.
Great voice. Do you know what's so funny? And I don't hear this, but when I was watching the Charlie Rose interview last night with Wes Anderson, and Victoria was listening. She goes, "He sounds exactly like Owen Wilson." I'd never heard that in Wes Anderson's voice, but then I started hearing that they have some.
They
of
have that same voice. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to
the Wilson twang. It's you can't you gotta love it. It's so great.
You do. It's very imitable.
It is. Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Joe. And if the home viewer would liked what you saw here, and why the hell would you not? Please feel free to like and subscribe. Or if you're listening to this on a podcast, the audio version.
You do that? Do you have the audio versions?
We do. Yeah, we're on just through Apple though.
Okay. Oh.
Not because I have any particular affinity for it, but
yeah,
I don't know how to get it on any other platform.
So you can't do that thing where you say wherever you listen to podcast, wherever you get your podcast.
No,
you have to say on Apple. That's good to know. I'm glad to know it's on Apple.
It's on Apple. Yeah. So yeah, if you don't want to spend the time watching me, you can listen to it on there. But yeah. So So if you do, please feel free to give a rating, preferably a good one, and that's all. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks so much, Joe. I do hope you come back and talk about something else at some point.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye-bye.